So how are you enjoying the house we bought for you? Imagine standing in front of your entire family only to realize they know a truth you've never even heard, a secret that could change everything you thought you knew about your own life. That's exactly where our story begins tonight. A young woman caught in a storm of betrayal, love, and the fight to reclaim her worth. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe so you won't miss the powerful stories we release every week. And while you're here, drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching this from? We'd love to know. Keep listening, because what starts with one shocking question at a family party will unravel into a journey of truth, justice, and unexpected love. Trust me, you'll want to hear this all the way to the end. The music thundered through the banquet hall, bass vibrating against the floorboards as laughter rose like smoke. Balloons shimmered under bright lights, the smell of roasted meat mixing with perfume in spilled champagne. Ifeoma stood near the back wall, her dress elegant yet simple, her palms damp against the cold glass of soda she clutched. She forced a smile whenever someone's gaze lingered too long, but inside her chest tightened. Around her, cousins and aunts celebrated, their conversations weaving a net she never quite fit into. Daniel, her husband, stood a step behind, tall and composed, his hand resting lightly on her back. He whispered reassurance whenever her shoulders stiffened, though his eyes betrayed unease at the sidelong glances. Tonight was supposed to be about family, about togetherness, yet every laugh reminded her how easily she became the quiet shadow in the corner. She took a breath, willing herself invisible, until one voice cut through everything. Her mother's tone carried sharpness, wrapped in a smile. "So, Ifeoma, how are you enjoying the house we bought for you?" The sentence fell like glass shattering. Conversations halted. Forks froze midair. Even the music seemed to recoil. Ifeoma blinked, her grip loosening, the soda slipping just enough to spill down her wrist. Heat rushed to her face as every head turned. She heard whispers already blooming like fire. The words replayed in her mind. Unreal, impossible. A house? What house? Her throat tightened, breath stalling. Her father's gaze locked on her, cold and warning, while her mother's lips curved in a smile that looked too proud to be accidental. The silence pressed in, suffocating, until she found her voice. "What house?" Her words trembled, each syllable raw, cutting the quiet like broken glass. Gasps fluttered around the room. An aunt whispered, "She doesn't know?" A cousin snickered behind his hand. The air thickened, heavy with curiosity and judgment. Daniel stepped forward, jaw clenched, his hand gripping hers firmly, but he stayed silent, waiting for her parents' response. Her father forced a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Your mother just meant the roof over your head. Don't take things so literally, sweetheart." His voice was too loud, too quick, a mask slipping. Ifeoma stared at him, her chest pounding as if her ribs were too fragile to contain her heart. Her mother raised her glass, eyes glittering. "Of course she knows. We did so much to make sure she'd be secure." The room buzzed again, questions circling like vultures. Ifeoma's vision blurred for a moment, the walls bending inward. But Daniel squeezed her hand tighter, anchoring her in place. The weight of humiliation crushed her shoulders, yet anger sparked beneath the shame. She scanned the room, faces filled with curiosity, pity, even amusement. They were watching her unravel, waiting for either a confession or a collapse. Her father's jaw tightened, his knuckles white against his glass, while her mother's smug smile dared her to challenge the lie. Daniel leaned close, his voice low, steady. "Breathe. Don't let them crush you here." She nodded faintly, though her eyes never left her parents. Every memory of sacrifice, late nights, bills overdue, meals skipped, clashed against her mother's words. How could they stand there, in front of everyone, weaving such a story while she lived each day clawing just to keep the lights on? The betrayal clawed at her chest, sharper with each second of silence. She lifted her chin, forcing herself to speak, though her voice quivered. "I think there's some mistake." Her mother's smile faltered, a flicker of irritation crossing her eyes, while her father shot her a warning glance that cut deeper than any blade. "Don't embarrass us," his look seemed to scream. But the whispers grew louder, relentless. One cousin muttered, Didn't they get her a place years ago? Another answered, that's what I heard. Their voices burned against her skin, each word a reminder that everyone believed in a life she never had. Daniel's hand slid to her shoulder, steadying her. He whispered, you don't owe them silence. But Ifeoma could feel the trap tightening, her parents' gazes pinning her in place. She wanted the ground to open, to swallow her whole, but the truth now pulsed too fiercely to ignore. She forced a brittle smile, her lips trembling as she said, maybe you're confusing me with someone else. The laughter returned in awkward bursts, conversations trying to stitch themselves back together, but the night was already fractured. Her parents exchanged a look, their false smiles cracking. Daniel guided her gently toward the edge of the room, away from prying eyes, though whispers still followed like shadows. Ifeoma's body trembled, her stomach twisting, yet her mind sharpened. Something had been stolen, not just a gift, but years of her life. She pressed her lips together, eyes burning, while Daniel whispered, we'll find out, I promise. And in that promise, she clung to a spark of strength. This wasn't over. Tonight was only the beginning. Rain lashed against the windshield as Daniel steered the car through the quiet streets, wipers groaning with each pass. Ifeoma sat rigid in the passenger seat, her arms crossed tightly, nails digging into her skin. The taste of humiliation from the party still clung to her tongue. She stared out at the blurred lights, her voice brittle when she finally spoke. They humiliated me in front of everyone. They made me feel like a fool. Daniel's jaw tightened as he kept his eyes on the road. They wanted control. That's why they threw it at you like that. But we'll dig. We'll get the truth. She turned toward him, the glow from the dashboard reflecting in her eyes. What if there is no truth to find? What if I'm just imagining things? He shook his head sharply. No, they slipped. I saw their faces. They're hiding something, and we're going to uncover it. The next evening, she sat across from her parents in their polished living room. The air smelled faintly of wine and furniture polish, every surface gleaming as if to ward off questions. Her mother perched on the sofa's edge, legs crossed neatly, a glass stem trembling between her fingers. Her father leaned back, jaw set, eyes cold. Ifeoma swallowed hard, her voice tight. Tell me the truth. Did someone give you money for me? Was there supposed to be a house? Silence stretched, then her father laughed harshly. Your grandmother's confused. You shouldn't listen to every word she says. Her mother chimed in quickly, her tone sharp under the thin smile. Why are you trying to stir trouble, Ifeoma? We've given you enough already. You should be grateful for the life you have. Ifeoma's hands clenched into fists. Grateful? For what? Scraping rent every month? Watching you pretend everything is fine while I break my back working 2 jobs? Her father's voice rose, shaking the glass in his hand. We raised you. We sacrificed more than you'll ever know. And now you accuse us like we're criminals? The words struck her chest like stones, but anger burned hotter than fear. She pushed forward, her voice trembling but fierce. Did you or did you not take money that was meant for me? Her mother's eyes narrowed, lips curling with disdain. Even if there was money, what makes you think you could handle it? You'd squander it. You've always been too impulsive. Her father added, and let's not pretend your marriage doesn't change things. You married a white man, Ifeoma. That's privilege enough. Don't expect us to hand you more. Daniel flinched, but before he could speak, Ifeoma's chest tightened with both fury and shame. She saw in their eyes not just betrayal, but contempt, the kind that reduced her entire worth to the color of her skin and the man she loved. Her voice cracked as she stood. You didn't just take money. You took my future and tried to convince me I didn't deserve it. Later that night, she sat at her kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Bills were scattered in front of her, each envelope a reminder of the grind that consumed her days. Daniel leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching her with steady eyes. They're lying, he said firmly. I saw it. They panicked. Ifeoma dropped her face into her hands, breath shallow. And what if I'm chasing shadows? What if I destroy what little family I have left? Daniel pushed away from the counter, kneeling beside her chair. What family? The ones who sit back and let you starve while they hide what's yours? If that's family, then you deserve better. His hand covered hers, grounding her. She lifted her head, eyes wet, voice whispering. Then I need proof. I can't accuse them without something solid. His jaw set with resolve. Then that's what we'll find. The following afternoon, the county office buzzed with fluorescent light and faint echoes of printers. Ifeoma's heart hammered as she filled out the request form, her pen trembling against the paper. Daniel stood beside her, a quiet pillar of strength, his presence a shield against the fear gnawing at her ribs. The clerk tapped at her keyboard, then swiveled the monitor slightly toward them. Lines of data scrolled across the screen until a single entry caught Ifeoma's eye. Property purchased. 3 years ago. Names, Richard and Claudia Nwosu. Down payment, $85,000. Her stomach dropped as if the floor had vanished. Her breath caught, lips parting in shock. Daniel leaned in, his eyes narrowing. That's it. That's the proof. She reached for the printout with shaking hands, the paper crisp yet heavy in her grip. She traced the numbers, unable to deny the cruel confirmation staring back at her. The room seemed to shrink, voices muffled, her pulse roaring in her ears. In the car afterward, she sat with the document folded in her lap, staring through the windshield as the world outside passed in a blur. Daniel broke the silence, his voice steady. They can't run from this anymore. You have it in black and white. She turned slowly, tears streaking her cheeks. They watched me struggle. They watched me beg for help, and all along they had this. Her voice cracked with rage and grief. How could they do that to their own daughter? Daniel reached for her hand, gripping it firmly. Because they never thought you'd fight back. But you're not going to let them bury this. She nodded slowly, pressing the folded paper against her chest. Betrayal had carved a hollow inside her, but resolve began to fill the void. She whispered through clenched teeth, "They tried to erase my worth. They won't succeed." The dining room glowed with warm light, yet every flicker of the chandelier felt sharp against Ifeoma's skin. Plates clinked, silverware scraped, but beneath the chatter lingered a tension thick enough to choke. She sat beside Daniel, her body rigid, the folded copy of the property record hidden in her purse. Across the table, her mother passed a bowl of roasted vegetables, smiling too brightly, while her father poured wine as though nothing in the world could shake his composure. But Ifeoma knew the truth pulsed between them, a silent war waiting to ignite. Daniel leaned closer, whispering so only she could hear. "Not yet. Just watch. They'll give themselves away." She nodded, her throat tight, trying to match the rhythm of her breath with the rise and fall of conversation. But her parents' eyes found hers often, glances heavy with warning, as though daring her to challenge them. Her cousin lifted a glass, laughing about his new promotion, and everyone clapped politely. But the air around Ifeoma remained heavy. Then her mother's voice slid across the table, sweet as poisoned honey. "It's such a shame you don't invite us over, Ifeoma. Surely you'd want your family to see where you live." Whispers ran along the edges of the table. Ifeoma's pulse hammered. She forced her lips into a thin smile. "It's not much," she murmured. Her mother's brow arched, her tone cutting. "Not much? That's modesty talking. You should be proud. You do have a roof, don't you?" The words pierced like a blade cloaked in silk. Daniel stiffened, his hand tightening on his fork. Ifeoma lowered her gaze to her plate, but her chest burned. She knew her mother was taunting her, pushing her to break in front of everyone. Her father's voice followed, steady but cold. "Some people always want more. They forget the sacrifices made for them. They forget that without us, they'd have nothing." His eyes pinned her, daring her to respond. Ifeoma's stomach knotted, anger rising like bile. She set her fork down slowly, fingers trembling. "Sacrifices?" she said softly, though her voice trembled with steel. "You let me work nights. You let me beg for help, while you lived in comfort on what was meant for me." The table stilled. An uncle coughed into his napkin. A cousin shifted uncomfortably. Her mother's smile faltered, sharp edges cutting through the mask. "Don't twist this, Ifeoma. You've always been dramatic. No one owes you a thing." Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm, yet ringing with quiet fury. "She's not being dramatic. She's telling the truth. You can't keep pretending in front of everyone." Her father slammed his hand against the table, glasses rattling. "Stay out of this. This is family business." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes unflinching. "I am family, and I won't sit silent while you demean her." Gasps circled the table. Ifeoma's breath caught, torn between fear and relief. Her parents' faces hardened, fury simmering beneath their controlled expressions. Her mother's nails dug into her wine glass as she hissed, "You embarrass us with your accusations. Do you really want to shame your parents in front of everyone?" Ifeoma's hands trembled under the table, but she raised her chin. "The shame isn't mine." The silence that followed was suffocating, every eye glued to the battlefield forming across the table. Plates cooled, untouched. Her father leaned back, his laugh low and bitter. "You think a piece of paper makes you strong? You think you can stand against us?" Daniel's voice cut through. "She doesn't need to think. She knows, because we've already seen the truth. And it's only a matter of time before everyone else does too." Her mother's face drained of color, then flushed with anger. "Enough of this," she snapped, her smile collapsing into a snarl. "You'll ruin this family with your lies." Ifeoma's heart pounded, but her resolve crystallized. She could feel the record burning against her purse like a live coal, proof waiting for its moment. She inhaled deeply, her voice calm yet unyielding. "I'm not the one who ruined this family." The meal limped on. Conversation fractured into awkward fragments, yet the tension never eased. Ifeoma felt each second stretch, her parents' glare stabbing her across the table. Daniel's hand brushed hers under the cloth, his silent promise steadying her heartbeat. Though she had not unveiled the evidence yet, she knew the battle lines were drawn, and there would be no turning back. The humiliation of the party, the cruelty of their words, the betrayal confirmed in black ink, all of it now fused into something sharper, something unbreakable. She would not cower, she would not fold. Their power was crumbling, and the truth was clawing its way into the open. The room buzzed faintly with forced chatter, but for Ifeoma, everything had narrowed to a single promise. The confrontation was coming, and when it did, she would no longer be silent. The dining hall glowed with polished silverware and steaming dishes, yet the air was brittle with suspicion. Relatives filled the long table, voices rising and falling in shallow laughter that rang hollow. Ifeoma sat rigid, her pulse thudding in her throat. The property record folded tight inside her purse. Daniel beside her radiated calm, though the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. Across the table, her parents laughed too loudly, passing plates as though their cheerfulness could plaster over cracks that had already split wide open. A cousin raised a toast, glasses clinked, but beneath the thin celebration, every glance darted toward her. The weight of eyes pressed like chains. Her stomach churned, yet she kept her hand over her purse, the proof humming like fire against her side. She knew the moment was coming, and once it broke, there would be no return to silence. Her mother leaned forward, her voice smooth but barbed. "We've been patient, darling. When will you finally let us visit your place? Everyone's so curious." The chatter faltered, faces turning. Ifeoma gripped her glass, her knuckles white, her chest burning. Her father's smirk followed, his tone cutting. "Yes, why hide? Unless you're embarrassed. Surely you're not ashamed of the home we made possible for you." A murmur spread like sparks along dry grass. Ifeoma's heart hammered, yet Daniel's hand slid over hers, steady and firm. She swallowed the lump in her throat and spoke evenly, though her voice quivered with fury. "You want to see where I live? You've seen it already. It's called a tiny apartment with cracked walls and no heat. That's what I have." Her mother's face stiffened, a laugh spilling too sharp, too forced. "Don't play games, Ifeoma. Everyone knows the truth. Stop pretending." Her father's glass clinked against the table as he leaned forward. "You've humiliated us long enough with this nonsense. Do you think your lies make you strong?" Daniel's chair scraped as he straightened, his voice cutting through. "She isn't lying. She has nothing to hide. But you do." The room froze, spoon suspended, eyes wide. A distant cousin muttered, "What does he mean?" The hum of whispers swelled, choking the air. Ifeoma's chest tightened, her fingers trembling, yet resolve surged like steel through her veins. She reached into her purse, pulled the folded document, and laid it on the table with deliberate care. "This is what you didn't want me to find." Gas rippled, chairs shifted, voices hissed. Her father's face blanched before twisting with rage. "You went digging? How dare you?" Her mother reached for the paper, but Daniel's hand slammed down first, firm. "Don't touch it. Everyone should see." Ifeoma unfolded the sheet, her voice steady now. "County records. A house bought 3 years ago, paid with $85,000. The same money that was meant for me." A wave of murmurs crashed around the table, and accusations whispered like thunder. An aunt leaned closer, frowning. "Is this true?" Another voice. "I remember hearing about that check." Panic flickered across her mother's face, then hardened into venom. "You ungrateful child. After all we've done, this is how you repay us?" Her father's fist struck the table, plates rattling. "You should be thankful you even have a roof. Do you know what we sacrificed?" Ifeoma's voice cut through his fury, cold and sharp. "Sacrifice is letting your daughter drown while you live off what was meant to save her. Sacrifice is watching her work double shifts while you sleep under stolen comfort." Her mother hissed, eyes blazing. "You twist everything. You've always been reckless, irresponsible, never worthy of trust." Daniel's voice thundered now, his anger unmasked. "Stop. She is worthy. She's fought for every scrap of dignity while you lied. And tonight, everyone sees who you really are." Silence engulfed the room, thick and suffocating. Relatives shifted, their gazes swinging toward her parents, judgment clear in their eyes. Her father sputtered, his mask slipping. "You think a piece of paper will ruin us? You think anyone will believe you over your own parents?" Ifeoma drew her phone from her pocket, her thumb pressing play. From the speaker came her father's voice, dripping with contempt. "Even if there was money, she wouldn't know what to do with it. She has her white husband. That's privilege enough." Gasps erupted, chairs scraping back. Her mother's scream pierced the chaos. "Turn that off!" But the damage was done. The recording filled every corner, undeniable, irrevocable. Ifeoma's breath shook, but her chin lifted high, her words firm. "This is who you are. You tried to bury me in silence, but the truth will not stay buried." Her parents sat rigid, their fury exposed, but the room no longer belonged to them. Murmurs circled, relatives leaning away, disgust etched across their faces. Daniel slipped an arm behind Ifeoma's chair, steady and proud. "It's over," he whispered, his voice carrying a finality that wrapped around her like armor. Her mother clutched her wine glass, her hand trembling too violently to hold it steady. Her father stared at the record, his power dissolving in front of the family he once commanded. Ifeoma exhaled slowly, her voice low but resolute. "You thought I would stay silent forever. You were wrong." And with those words, the balance shifted. The foundation of control cracked wide open. The courthouse steps gleamed in the afternoon sun, but to Ifeoma, they looked like the edge of a battlefield finally conquered. Her parents had been forced to sell the house, the same house they had built on deception. She stood with Daniel at her side, the final papers tucked under her arm, the ink still sharp against her fingertips. He glanced at her, his voice quiet but unwavering. "It's done. They can't take anything else from you." She let out a long breath. She didn't realize she'd been holding. "They already took years from me, but I won't let them steal what's left." Daniel's hand brushed hers, steady and warm. "No, from here on, it's ours to build." His words sank into her, a promise stronger than the weight of any judgment. She looked up at the sky, a sudden sense of space pressing against her chest, and for the first time in years, she felt air rush through her lungs without chains. 2 weeks later, cardboard boxes lined the floor of a modest but sunlit home. The scent of fresh paint still lingered, mixing with the sharp tang of packing tape and cardboard. Ifeoma knelt on the hardwood floor, opening a box filled with sketches and swatches from her design projects. Her fingers lingered over a rolled blueprint, edges worn from years of waiting. Daniel carried another box into the living room, his shirt damp with sweat, a grin playing across his lips. "It's not a mansion, but it's ours." She smiled faintly, brushing dust from her hands. "No, it's better. It's honest." He crossed the room, pressing a kiss to her forehead before setting the box down. This is your space, your dream. Show me what you'll make of it. She unrolled the blueprint against the wall, the lines of her imagined home blooming against fresh paint, and her heart ached with pride. Later that evening, the two of them sat cross-legged among half-open boxes, a single lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, the neighborhood hummed with quiet life, children laughing faintly in the distance. Ifeoma leaned back against the wall, the blueprint spread beside her. Her voice trembled as she broke the silence. Do you think people will always look at us like we don't belong? That I don't belong? Daniel turned to her, his eyes fierce. They can look however they want. What matters is that you know you belong. Here, with me, with everything you've earned. She blinked away tears, the words burrowing deep. For so long, I thought their approval defined me, that without it, I was nothing. Daniel shook his head firmly. They defined nothing. You've carried yourself through storms that they would never survive. You're worth more than anything they tried to deny you. She closed her eyes, letting the truth settle. A knock on the door startled them. Ifeoma rose, heart thudding, and opened it to find Maya, her colleague, holding a small houseplant in a ceramic pot. Maya grinned. A housewarming gift? Thought you could use something alive to start fresh. Ifeoma's throat tightened as she took the plant, cradling it carefully. You have no idea how much this means. Maya stepped inside, eyes scanning the bare but bright room. It feels like a possibility in here. Daniel chuckled. That's exactly what it is. They laughed softly, the sound echoing through empty corners, filling the space with warmth. For the first time, the house felt like more than walls and wood. It felt alive. That night after Maya left, Ifeoma stood in the center of the room, staring at her design pinned against the wall. Daniel came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. His voice was low but strong. You stood against them. You showed the truth. You claimed your worth. No one can ever take that away. She leaned into him, her eyes fixed on the lines of her future drawn in ink. They didn't just try to steal money. They tried to strip away my value, my dignity. But together we took it back. Daniel's chin rested against her shoulder, his smile soft. And we'll keep it every day in this place. She exhaled, the weight in her chest finally easing, and whispered, This house isn't just mine. It's us. As dawn broke, light spilled across the bare floor, bathing the room in gold. Ifeoma sat alone for a moment, the plant beside her, the sketch pinned proudly on the wall. She touched the paper gently, her voice steady. This is where I begin again. The silence that followed was not empty, but filled with promise. When Daniel joined her, coffee in hand, she smiled through tired eyes, strength shimmering beneath her exhaustion. We don't need their approval, she said. We never did. He handed her the mug, his voice quiet but resolute. Exactly. All we need is us. And as the sunlight rose higher, washing the room in warmth, she felt whole, unbroken, and free. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful story of love, betrayal, and resilience. What are your thoughts on Ifeoma's journey? Would you have handled the confrontation the same way? Share your perspective in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story, and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Your support means everything. Until next time, take care and keep believing in your worth.